Welcome to module number 3. Focus on mission, vision, and core values as part of the 640 Leadership Curriculum Development and Supervision class. My name is Chris Sadler. I'm the Director of Human Resources for the Sun Prairie Area School District. Some of you may know this, but I did grow up in Heartland, Wisconsin, just outside of, in Waukesha County, just outside of Waukesha. I started my education career in teaching kindergarten for 10 years, taught in Atlanta for 6 of those years in a very large school district in the Gwinnett County Public School System, which is one of the largest in the country. I was one of 17 kindergarten teachers in the same school, which was a great experience. Be happy to talk with people more about that at some other time. I was an elementary principal for 10 years. All of those 10 years were in Title I schools, and they range from small rural districts in Nakusa, Wisconsin or Marshall, Wisconsin to a growing suburban district in Sun Prairie. And then for the last 2 years, I've been the Director of Human Resources for the Sun Prairie Area School District in that capacity. So the focus of the screen show today is really focused on the vision, mission, values, and goals of your school district. These really are the pillars of your professional learning community. We're going to talk through what the difference between a vision and mission is, how do you develop your values, and how do your goals connect to all three of those. Most of the time, districts will have these examples or connections to their vision, mission, values, and goals on their school district website. I have a couple LinkedIn examples here. They're both in your resources and in the PowerPoint itself, which will be shared with you in resources as well. We have the Sun Prairie example, which I'm really familiar with, obviously, and then we have the Merrill Area Public School District, or school district north of Madison, a ways more towards Wausau, that you can kind of check out for both examples there. And you're going to see that in both examples, they have the vision and mission all very clearly defined on their website, but then also a connection to the goals within their scorecards. And so they're two good examples to just kind of explore. And then you're going to want to know your own, like where does the district you're in or the school you're in, what are its vision, what is its mission, what is its values, and how are the goals tied to all three of those? You might have a great structure and you'll say, wow, we really have a great connection between all four of these concepts. Or you might look at the examples that are given here and say, oh, I wish we could get to that point at some point. And I think that it'll be a good use of your time to look through the examples that are given and really compare and contrast and see, how does that mission and vision and values and goals all interconnect with your own district, and what are some things that maybe have to be clearer if you were to step into a leadership role in your district or the districts that you're looking at here. So what is the difference between a vision and mission? When you think about a vision, it really does outline where you want to be. So it's good to think about these as the W's, like the questions you ask yourself. When you think about your vision, your main question should be, where do we want to be at in the future? What is our optimal future? If you're a school district that's thinking through this question, your optimal future might be different based on the community you serve. It doesn't mean your expectations are different. It just means that your community might have a specific connection to their schools, and you really want that to show up with where you want not just your schools to be, but where you want your community to be. So when you're thinking about organizing like a committee to really think through your vision, you're going to want to not just include people that work in the schools, but you're going to want to include parents, other community members that might not have kids in your school, business leaders, other governmental leaders, mayors or congressmen, Congress members, whatever it might be. You're going to want them in there too, because they all want to see the schools support the community vision as well. So there should be some type of inner working between the two. And it really does talk about the organization's future of where it aims to be. So where does the school district really, really want to get to? Now your mission statement talks more about how you will get there and where you want to be. So it defines the purpose, the primary objectives, to your stakeholder needs and team values. So stakeholders, again, your stakeholders are your students, are your staff, are your community, are your parents, is the larger community even outside of your community. If it's, a small community within a county, how does that all interwork in there, and how do you get to your vision working with all those different stakeholders? Within that, you're thinking about, what do we do? What makes us different? What does our school district do that makes us different than other school districts that are either neighboring to us or even far away? And you really want to define that within your mission, because that's gonna focus your strategies on how you get to your vision. Your mission statement talks about the present leading to its future. So again, that's why you're going to see some districts have both a vision and mission clearly stated, because the mission is about now and how you're getting eventually to the vision that you're creating. It might list broad goals. So in bulleted points underneath it, it might talk about, here's our mission, to serve every child every day. And here's some ways to do that. And it's a bulleted list of goals and showing how you're going to bring that organization to its vision. When you're thinking about the audience of the mission, you really have to think about how you word it. A lot of the times we use great educational language with each other, but outside of education, they are not going to have any idea what you're talking about. So you're going to want to make sure that your mission and vision are very friendly to your audience, because your audience spans a ton of different people: your leadership team, your staff, and the various stakeholders that are in your community. Again, parents, community members, governmental officials, business partners. You're going to want to write it in a way that anybody can understand it, no matter if they're in education or not. So it's just something really important to remember on how that gets communicated. So when we think, again, more about the difference between the two, a lot of the times an organization will continue to grow. You're going to want to feel tempted to change your vision very quickly. So make sure that the mission and vision that you have is very, very steeped in the foundation that makes your organization unique, your school district unique within your community. So the change really should be minimal changes along the way to kind of tweak your roadmap a bit. It shouldn't be a complete 180. If it is, that means you have to have some pretty deep conversation with your community and understand why 180 is important to change complete directions. Again, these questions are: where do we want to be going? Where do we want to be going forward? When do we want to reach that stage? How do we want to do it? Clarity is very, very important in this, because if your vision and mission together lack clarity, people aren't really sure of what you stand for and how they can help get you there. Because every stakeholder in their heart wants to get the school district to a high level for all students, because in the end, it does help the community grow and become prosperous in different ways. When you're describing your vision, obviously you want to have a sense of hope. Is it something people will remember? Is it achievable? Is it something the community really believes is where they want to get to, and they know they can get to at some point? So there's like this glimmer of hope of, wow, this is really something that we want to get to, but also a glimmer of reality all at the same time of, we think we can get there. Because if it's unattainable, that hope is going to kind of go away, and people are going to become disenfranchised and want to do something different. Your mission statement could change. This is because it's more based in your present. So as you're moving along towards your vision, your mission might need to change, because maybe your mission before, you've accomplished whatever the goals are underneath it, and now you got to move on to new ones to get closer to the vision that you've set. I think there is an important question of, like, what do we do today? Now, today can mean a lot of different things, but it's basically, what can we do right now to take steps towards the vision? And within that, I think that one of the biggest questions is why. Why do we want to do what we're doing and get to that vision? Why is it important? Why do we know it's a good step? do other stakeholders understand the why behind your mission statement to get to that vision? That why question is an important one to answer. If you can't answer it clearly, your stakeholders won't know the real purpose behind it, and you might be able to move a little bit or incrementally on your mission towards your vision, but it's not going to move as fast if everyone has a deep-seated understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. And the more you can communicate that in the different ways you can communicate it, the better. They say 7 different ways is an important concept to think. Can you communicate something in 7 different ways? So you can hit every stakeholder and how they best remember what you're trying to tell them. You want to define who your primary quote unquote clients are, or stakeholders. Who are the people that are influential? Obviously your students, your staff, your parents, your families, your community, are the people that you really want to think about when you're communicating these, the vision and mission. And then finally, what are the responsibility of your organization towards your stakeholders? You do want them to have specific say in the mission and vision of what you're doing. And the only way to do that is to understand how or what your responsibility is to your parents, to your students, to your staff, and clearly define that, and then invite them in to say, we know that you're an important part of our school district. And the only way for our school district to move forward is to include you in the conversation of where we want to get to and where we are right now. So one thing, this is not a specific assignment, but it's just something to take time to. Review your own district mission and vision. I know that I found myself in my career before that when I've listened or when I've been asked, what's your mission and vision for your school district? I sometimes just would stare at the person because I didn't know it. So it's good to review it. Every district has some type of language around a mission and vision. And for you to understand where you fit within that organization to get to that mission and vision is important. Then what you kind of want to think about is, and you can write this down in a T-chart and split it between 2 columns, or you can just think about it and reflect. Is your school district right now living up to your vision and mission? What are some parts that are truly lived up to, and what are some parts that might not be lived up to? Because every district that I've ever been a part of, even the most highly functioning school district, has places where they're not living their vision or they're not living their mission. And it's really important to be honest about that, because that's the only way you can look at something and say, we're just not there yet. How can we make this better? So it would be good for you as a budding leader, either in your district or some other district, to understand the honesty behind that question is important. How are you living it? What's not being covered or what's not being lived in order to improve? And then think about, for those places that are not being lived into that vision and mission, what needs to happen in order to take that next step? Is it a complete different strategy than the ones that are listed? Or is it that for whatever reason the strategy has kind of fallen off and people haven't used it as much? And it's something that just needs to be revisited. And I think that's an important piece, because a lot of the times we have a tendency to say, let's just throw out all these strategies, they're not working. But maybe if you look at those strategies, they might not just have been used. And there was a great plan behind it, but then when somebody sat down to actually put it together, it just didn't happen. So maybe it's just coming back to that strategy and saying, hey, you know what? Let's put this actually in place. We talked about it, but we didn't really put it in place. So there's some good examples that I have in this slideshow and also in your resources that you can look at from very different perspectives. We have the Green Bay School District, a larger school district, Racine, a larger school district, and then Bangor, which is a smaller district. And the one thing that I found interesting about that one is it is really flexible in the Bangor example because they are focused not just on obviously their vision past this COVID pandemic, but they actually have some language in there about what they're going through right now and how they're trying to live their mission and vision during a challenging time. And I thought that was interesting to look at and how they tweaked their mission a bit based on what we're going through right now. So core values. To me, there's a mission and vision that every district tries to live up to. But what I think is the most important grounding concept that you can think through as a school leader is what are the core values of your school and school district. When you first step into the role of a school leader, if you can try to clearly define or understand the core values of your school and school district, it will really help you understand how to be the best leader for that specific school or district. The reason I say that is because core values span way past the school district and school walls. The community has a huge influence on the core values of a school district. Now, core values can change. So if a school district officials see that there is something coming out of student outcomes, the biggest concept that comes out and can challenge core values is the concept that some students are not being serviced the way they should. They are not meeting the expectations we have for all students, and we're seeing a large gap between students based on race or gender, ethnicity, language, ability. Those splits that are there in achievement can really challenge the core values of the school district, I found. So as a school district leader or school leader, it is really important to understand the core values that are there, because some of those core values have been ingrained for decades, maybe even a century within that school district. So my advice always is to ask those questions right up front. What are our core values? And as you start learning more about your organization, you're going to want to ask those questions. What are our core values around student learning, around professional development, around community engagement? Core values typically have some action behind them and can be assessed. So, a core value might not just be we value our parents or we value parent engagement. It's a core value would say we believe that having parents highly engaged in their students' education leads to higher student outcomes for all students. And then there might be a goal connected to that. They might have SMART goals, that are measurable, obviously responsive and really timely. But they aren't really goals. They can lead to goals, but I would say they're more close to the concept of non-negotiables, which means we believe that parent engagement is an important concept in helping our students meet our high expectations. And parent engagement is a non-negotiable. If you're a teacher or any other staff member, we need you to value parents and families and engage them, if that's your core value. Core values always keep the student in mind. Any core values that you look at it from a school district, and if you don't see any type of leaning or description of students within that, or show how students are affected by those core values, then I think those core values need to be relooked at and defined differently. Because every core value you have should always lead to the student. How are the students reflecting your core values? Because if they're not reflected in your core values, then they won't be reflected in your mission and they won't be reflected in your vision. So developing core values can take on a lot of different ways. Just identifying them is the most important. Establishing a way that community has buy-in or say into those core values is really important. And many of these core values should be reflected in your PLCs. So I know professional learning communities is a buzzword in education, but as your teams work together, no matter if it's your leadership team or teacher teams or support staff teams or some combination of those, these core values should be hooked into all those conversations that they have around planning and instruction. So if parent engagement is a big piece, that core value should show up in those conversations within their PLCs and come out with actionable steps based on the PLC work. So this is just a quick example of one school's core values. Hope is not a strategy. Don't blame the kids. Worksheets don't grow at dendrites. Believe all students can and will learn. Now those are really simple, but they say a lot. Hope is not a strategy. I hope my children are going to do well this year. No. You need action steps to help your students learn the most they can. And it really is about your instruction. It's not about, the children that have outside forces that sometimes you could say are the reason that they are not meeting the expectations you have. But in the end, what this school is saying is it's our job to create strategies to help kids learn as much as possible. And no matter what circumstance those kids are in, and our instruction has to be engaging at all levels. And within that, which undergirds it all, is that all students can and will learn. So if you think about these core values that are on this slide, they are very interconnected and they are very clear about what that school or school district is about. In your resources too, there's a nice article that goes over how PLC should look and how they should reflect your core values. So please take time to read that article and just think about how you would go about helping PLCs or your grade level groups or department groups or teams really interject the core values of your district into every conversation they have. Because when I think about the core values that are on this slide, if every PLC really lived these core values, just think about how successful that school could be. And that's what core values should do, is drive your school district to being best for all students. This is just a nice core value example of how a school and school district really came about in a very short video. It's only about 2 or 3 minutes long, to see about how they actually define core values as they move forward within their vision. One thing you can do with Racine is I do find their core value and their strategy and their strategic planning and their vision and mission very interconnected, and it's very interesting to read through their website to see how they came about it. So check out this video. They have other videos on their website too that talk about how they came to their mission and vision that I think would be really interesting as you go. So as you go look through their website, just think about what was their process for coming up to their vision and mission, their core values. How did their core values become an action? How did those core values be supported by all stakeholders? And then if you were part of a district like this and you had to sit down and just almost start blank from a blank slate of a school district that didn't have a vision, mission, core values, anything defined, what would be your role in that development? How would you articulate it and support the core values that are being defined? So as a superintendent, as a principal, as a director of instruction, business, student services, whatever it might be, what is your role in really helping people create the core values that are there? So in connection to the last slide, now we got to look at the first assignment for 640, number 1, just core value development. This is kind of an open-ended assignment for a reason, because what I really want to see is I just want to see people think through, let's say you step into a school district, it's your first day or on the job, and you realize really quickly that your school or district is lacking a real presence of its mission and vision statement. There's no actions connected to it, and maybe even the mission and vision just aren't clearly articulated. So what I want you to do is I want you to think through your certification area, if you're superintendent or principal or whatever it might be. I want you to think about it from that perspective. As a superintendent, what will be the process you create to identify the core values of the organization? Or principal, setting that for the school you're in. Or the director of instruction, because there's no core value connected to overall instruction, or student services, or there's no mission or vision of your business office. Whatever it might be, think about it from that perspective. Now remember, if you have 2 certification areas, you're going to have to do 2 assignments. You can do it on the same paper, but you're going to say, this is what I would do as a superintendent, this is what I would do as a principal. Identify the basic phases of developing the process. How will you engage stakeholder groups, and how will you measure the effectiveness of the process? Now, remember, papers just have to be 3 to 5 pages long. That will get eaten up fast in this assignment, but don't shy away from using a chart or a flow chart to explain your process. It's okay to do that. It does not all have to be narrative. So if you have a flow chart that you would show how you would develop the mission and vision from step by step, feel free to use that, and then just use a small narration to narrate how you would move from step to step. If you want to do it all through the written word and not have flow charts and charts, that's okay too. But what I've found is typically when you're trying to communicate this type of process, a chart of some sort, either a flow chart or even just a table showing one step to the next, is very helpful for you to gather your thoughts and organization. Now again, this is wide open assignment for a reason. It's because that's what will happen to you in reality, is that you might step into a district that is very without a rudder. And you're going to have to think of a process to really create a rudder as quickly as possible while still really getting every stakeholder perspective included in that. So take your time with it, but think through, like, how would you actually do this within your certification area. For this assignment, the rubric is relatively simple. Basically, what you're really trying to do is bring a lot of clarity to your core value development. How do you engage stakeholders and measure the effectiveness? That's the basics. Now, I want you to focus on 3s. So what you're trying to do is you're just trying to create the process, make it clear, engage stakeholders, and measure the effectiveness. Now, 4 with distinguished, basically it's very clear from step by step how you would go through it, and really engage stakeholders at a high level. Not just ask their opinion, but how do you put them in a leadership role? That's typically the difference between a 3 and 4 with a lot of these assignments. Is 3 is you met the benchmarks of what we're looking for. 4 is how did you actually engage stakeholders in most of these assignments, and how did you create leadership opportunities for them? Not just for you to take the lead, but how did you actually disperse that responsibility of leadership and really make it an engaging process for all? Okay, so you've reached the end of the module, number 3. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to do a private discussion on our Educate website, or you can contact me by my cell phone, 608-575-5852. If you're using text messaging, just include your name so I know who's texting me. All right, thanks, and I hope you have a great week.